Laurent there, but where is that guy called? Where is Pierre?
Sorry?
Pierre or Max? I mean, is it,
Yeah, so
Max is it Max Predator?
yeah, I haven't. On Jabber, it looks like he's available, but he was telling me that he's in some move situation from a prior meeting, so let's hope this will work out.
Then we also don't have the next Pierre. Only Laurent there. I can move up the Laurent's presentation. Then
Yeah, let's see.
Then he may take more time, I guess. Let him take advance. That's right. Is that on time? Is he on? More people there.
Yeah, so Laurent is there, that's good. I'm also seeing it here.
And something Pierre's, Pierre's, is on. But not there, Pierre's. Yeah, Pierre's. Okay, guys. Let's get started. This will be the second session of Anima working group. So if you are looking for other working groups, you still have enough time to change the room. This is our second session, just 1 hour. Most focus on non-milestone work items, and we'll first also get update for the working group document to report on the on-site progress. This time only Bootstrap has made such request. Then we also have the autonomic function life cycle management by Pierre remotely. And we have the autonomic function coordination by Laurent remotely, information and acknowledgement exchange in autonomic networks by Laurent remotely. Then we have the autonomic network intent concepts and format by Jefferson. Jefferson here? Not yet. He will show up, I guess. Finally, if we had enough time, we will go information distribution over Grasp. Then let's move to Max.
So we haven't gotten Max yet, so
okay.
I skip for now and get back when. Hopefully.
Yeah. So Pierre. I'll get ready. What? No, but
He was just not still on the Jabber, but he was saying that he has some room movement problem. So, let's see if,
is Pierre on?
well, Pierre just dropped from the Jabber. So.
Then
Welcome to the wonderful world of remote participation.
Shall we move to Laurent?
Yep.
Okay, Laurent, are you on? Coordination? Laurent? Oh. If not, we may, no, not Jefferson is there. Yeah. I know, you can take the whole session for intent. Maybe that's not enough.
Okay.
Okay. So.
All right.
Yeah.
And when you run out of slides, just dance.
Sorry. No, he won't. There are enough discussions to take it for an hour, maybe two. Okay. Stay in a think box. Take the mic.
Good afternoon. So this is Jefferson. I'm going to present the draft autonomic network intent and format. So next slide. Okay. We're working on the version 3 of the draft, and this there are some changes from previous versions, and the most important changes are some modifications in the introduction when we added some information about policy-based management. Also, there are some changes in terminology used in the document. For example, terms like intent domain and policy. There is also a reorganization on the use case sections, and I'm going to talk about the use case later in the presentation. And also we added some information on distribution aspects, management and interpretation. Next slide. So from the reference model document, we have the autonomic network intent as an abstract, declarative, high-level policy used to operate autonomic domains such as an enterprise network. So this is the description that we have on the reference model. Next slide. So in our document, we try to give more details about the usage of autonomic intent policies. So first one is that an autonomic network probably will comprise multiple intent policies. Beside that, these policies will be interpreted at different levels in the network. So the level of understanding depends on the capabilities of the devices. So this has an impact on how the intent is interpreted in the network. And also it means that there will be some devices or functions that must translate the intent for the different devices in the network. Of course, this helps to address the heterogeneity of the device that comprise an autonomic network. Besides that, possibly the autonomic intents will overlap, so it's necessary some kind of a mechanism to, for example, resolve, avoid conflicts or resolve intents which have different needs. Next slide. So as I told before, we restructured our use case section, and I'm going to talk about the examples that we have in this section in our draft. So the first one is one of, maybe it's the most known on Anima, which is the prefix management. It's a role-based intent. So this is most an intent that can support the distribution of prefix in a IP RAM, and the information of the way which is the intent is distributed in the network can influence how the details of this prefix will be addressed by the autonomic nodes. Next slide. The second one, which is one of that has been discussed in the mailing list, is, for example, when you have to coordinate multiple intents. So in this example, we have two statements, two assertions. The first one is there should be enough hosts to keep CPU utilization less than 70%. And there is another one intent, which is there are few enough hosts part so that electricity isn't wasted. And of course, both intents will influence the way that the ASA, which is responsible to control the number of the hosts which are part on the network, is influenced. So it's necessary to have function that decides what is best for the network. So in this case, the first one, or in other words, it's more important to have enough hosts to keep CPU utilization less than 70% than to save electricity. So, but of course, some element or some function in the network, it must decide that. And also it's important that the different ACEs on the network coordinate to ensure that this is the autonomic network behaves in a consistent way. Next. The third use case, in this case, we consider a metropolitan network domain and a core network domain. And for the metropolitan domain, some operator A defines an intent to minimize the link load variance. And for the core network, the operator applies the previous intent and to activate load balancing if the load is superior to 1.6 on more than 30% of the links. Next slide. Okay. Beside these cases, we also add some information on intent distribution, and the envisaged mechanisms for distribution of intent are, as was discussed in the group GRASP, and also the ACP. Besides that, there has been a discussion on the list about some form of flooding in the network, maybe some flooding which is restrained or constrained using some kind of a domain information or other ways to restrain the flooding. Next slide. Okay. This topic of intent distribution and examples of intent have some active discussions on the list, and some questions and examples are summarized in the next slide. So one of the objectives of the presentation is to bring the questions and try to promote the discussion which has been taking place in the list, and also to collect feedback. So the target is to reach some common understanding, and also to document some parts of the intent which are not at this time covered in other documents. Next slide. Okay, so the questions, and I think this is the most important slide on this presentation, are some questions that we, as the authors of the draft, we discussed it internally, and we think that they are important to put for the Anima, which are, first, who writes the intents? Second, how many intents are expected in the network? Besides that, how many domains? And I think it is important to remember that it's also necessary to define what is an autonomic domain. And for now, we define an autonomic domain as the nodes that have to respect a certain intent. So it's kind of, like a circular definition. What are the intent levels hierarchy? And this is related with the need for translations and interpretations in the autonomic network. The fifth question is where and by what is intended processed and compiled. So it's an autonomic function, or there are some well-known policy elements of PDP or PEP in the network that perform such tasks. Next question is flooding. So if you are bringing food for this for distribution or intents, how it will be made? It's necessary to have some constraints, or how this will work on ACP. The next question is how is intent understood by node or an ASA? So it's also important to understand that if you are considering some kind of heterogeneity on the autonomic domain, probably you have some constraint devices along with more powerful devices, so they can have different capabilities in order to process the intents. And finally, can an ASA write an intent for another ASA? So this is also important. So you can have, for example, intents that can cross for different functions. This is also that it could possibly happen. Next. So as an examples of intent, and I think that this probably is not consensus, but we are at different levels, and I think that it's probably, you can see that there are different kinds of abstraction that we can use for intents. So for example, we have a very, very high abstraction, which is do the right thing, and probably this is very difficult for a network to address in this context. Also, we have an intent that could be freeze the network enrollment, that it's an intent it's being discussed in the mailing list. Another example that I mentioned before, arrange VM guest distribution so that CPU utilization is below 70%, which is more, we decrease the level of the understanding which is necessary for an element to process this intent. Assign prefixes to run nodes. It's also a well-known example of intent. Another one is protect premium users' traffic. For example, you can have some kind of a prioritization for different kinds of users in a network, and this could affect different services, different kinds of traffic on the network. And also, an intent that I mentioned before, to maximize energy savings, and probably this kind of intent must be composed with different intents in order to preserve some characteristics of the network, the prioritization of the traffic. So probably will be necessary to have. So probably it will be necessary to have other information for network in order to compose how the network should behave in order to maximize energy savings. So I think that pretty much the presentation, and just as a final note, I think the most important part is the questions, and of course there are lots of such questions that are not answered at this time. So
thanks, Jefferson. Michael Behringer. Can you go up 3 slides by now, I think. No, one more. One more. No, then I missed it, sorry. With the numbered list, the numbered list. There was one item with all the things.
Questions? No.
Yes, these ones. Number 8, we clarified, I think. Intent always comes not from an ASA, it comes from a human operator. I think that is the one where we have very clear consensus. The other ones, we are starting to converge. Just a general comment. We are risking in trying to please everything and everybody and making this thing blow out of all proportion. What I think we need to do, and so everybody comes up with cases that are somehow justified, right? Every time I respond to something, I think, what can I say against it? Well, you can't really. But if we try to do everything in one go, it's going to be a huge beast that we're trying here. What I would encourage us to think about is, what is the minimum we can start with? Do the minimum right now, knowing where to go from there. And I'll make the same comment after the next presentation, I think.
Yeah, I think that just to answer that, this draft is, I think, it's my personal view, that is going towards what you were mentioning, Michael. So we are looking for simplify the use cases and how they can be addressed in the network, and the last interaction and the last version of the draft, which has some new additions. I think they are going towards this direction, but I completely agree with you that we have to maintain simple in order to have a more concise proposal.
Individual opinions without my chair head on. Actually, Michael, I have slightly, different opinion against yours, because I think, for now, this work is not, really chartered for the working group. So that actually we had enough time to gather enough information and what we want to do, what we need actually for the autonomic network to be able to run. So no matter it's named intent or named something else like parameter for autonomic service agent, whatever. My suggestion is we can describe all this information between the autonomic agent, those between autonomic nodes. And either that's policy or parameters, start get all of them into one, document, then try to get them classified. Afterwards, we limit. Maybe the top one is named intent, the lower one named parameter, whatever. So the most important is, how, what the information needs to be changed with, between the autonomic nodes. We need to get most of them, if not all of them.
Michael Berenger. So I think a lot of the reasons why on the mailing list we're going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth and disagree and do agree is because we don't agree on the naming.
Yeah.
Right. And if we actually were able to describe what we mean, then I think it would make things a lot easier. So I would suggest let's try to get this naming right as soon as possible. And the thing with all this naming, I think we actually mean all the same thing. We just call it different bits. And therefore, I have this funny suspicion that there is no difference in our views, really, right? It's just you call something like that, and that triggers the wrong reaction on me, and vice versa, probably. So I would argue let's get the naming sorted as soon as we can so that we know what we are talking about.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. I guess, just keep, discuss that in the mailing list, then whatever consensus we got, we put into the draft. Yeah. And don't feel, pressure on timing, because so far it's not the working group milestone yet. So we don't have the time limit to do that. Yeah. Get things right.
No, we're continuing work on this document, but I think that I know the document and intents are not in the current charter, but I think that probably, and in all of the documents there are some mention to intent, so probably we have some document at least to define which is an Anima intent, and so probably it will be necessary. And I don't know if the current format of the draft is the best one to do that, but
for me, the working group already show a great interest into work on this, work. Then that's just the matter of the charter to do that, to include in that. I have no doubt, we can do that in this working group, but beware that, what we want is on top of autonomic network infrastructure. So there could be some, generic intent, but if you're talking about generic intent, that may out of this scope of the network, this working group. But if we're talking about the intent for the autonomic network, that's in the charter, but just not be a milestone yet. We will, definitely include that in the next charter, I guess, if we got approved.
Okay, thank you.
Who will be next? Max or Richardson has the priority because that's the working group document.
Well, we'll have to. Well, we're just checking out. We can't have Max, so we're looking between Michael and Michael.
Okay.
Let's move on with the
Cheers.
next one. Yeah, Pierre, are you ready to present?
Pierre?
Okay.
Naran,
So Pierre coming in.
come
Wait a
in.
second, I think I need to press the button here.
Okay.
No, wait. Was it the right button? Okay. He's,
Yeah, he's on.
okay.
Come on.
Okay, we can't hear you, Pierre. Audio problems? Do I need to press again?
Yeah. Oh, he's gone.
No, wait, did I press one too much?
He,
Okay,
okay, he's coming.
he's coming.
Press once.
Press once.
Yeah.
Pierre,
You're on.
you're on. We see the video quickly, but
Then you are gone.
no, he's still there. He's in front of the microphone.
Yeah, but
we can't hear you.
But his video gone.
The video is gone, yeah.
Yeah. And we can't hear him. The screen shows you're speaking.
No, we can't hear you.
No, we can't hear you.
Lorenzo is suggesting that you should shut off your video if you do have video, so that maybe impacting your audio.
Maybe we can try Naran first, then see whether that's working on our side or not.
Okay. Yeah. Can we get somebody
So you need to
else
push
to
that.
step on the mic just to see that the mic line is working?
Naran, yeah.
All right.
Hello, everyone.
Yeah, we can hear you. So you'll get the mic. So let's bring up the slides.
Thanks.
So that's a coordination. Is that what you want? Coordination.
Yes, we start with that.
Okay.
So hello, everyone. So this presentation is about autonomic functions coordination. There is an update of the draft. Can you go next slide, please? Yeah, thank you. So just a bit of background. This topic has already been presented in Dallas and Prague. And you also can find reference on that work in section 9 of the Anima reference model. What I would like to discuss with you today is highlight the problem, again, just to put everyone on the same page, and discuss a link with intent. I followed the discussion. It's not to reopen the discussion, but to see if there is any aspect that should be done with intent. So why do we need to coordinate? So the picture you can see on the slide is a interaction among a set of autonomic functions. So you have a set of parameters, controls, metrics that will make an interplay, and it's quite complex to to find the interactions and what to control in that interaction map. So the interactions are complex. Next slide, please. There are different types of interactions. You can have conflicting types of interactions, which is essentially what we will try to solve. But you can have also, you can promote cooperation and also dependency in the sense that, for instance, an autonomic function cannot work if another one is not already operating. So this is different type of interaction we have to cover. Interaction are also complex to manage by humans for a set of reasons. Essentially because of the scale. You have thousands of different functions distributed in the network. The speed of the operation, if we imagine runtime interaction, it's very difficult for a human to track at, for instance, millisecond updates of some autonomic functions behaviors. And also, it's a requirement to assist the human with tools or algorithms that can help to identify hidden dependencies, hidden links between the interactions, because things are not obvious even if you have a good model. So in the proposal, what we put forward for the working group in the next items will be to be able to coordinate the collective behavior thanks to a common function that will be available to all the autonomic functions. Next slide, please. So a brief sketch of the solution which is described in the draft. So the common coordination function provides means to achieve local and global stability and convergence. It's a reusable component. It means that it is something that autonomic functions will not have to develop and to repeat. It is useful at different phases for the network lifecycle. It can be at the design or deploy time, but also at, most importantly, at runtime. We can support multiple strategies, multiple type of algorithms to solve different type of coordination problems. It is not only a hammer we have in our toolbox. To realize that, there is some requirement, especially in terms of having a common description or a common manifest for autonomic functions, common lifecycle or unified lifecycle, and a way to represent information and knowledge in a unified way. And all this makes an essential feature of coordination to have a safe operation of autonomic networks. Next slide, please. So for discussion, what has been on the mailing list for a few weeks now, and also during this IETF meeting, we can imagine the coordination function as the building blocks of a policy engine, mainly used to resolve the conflict or the inconsistency in the policies. It can be seen as a logically central entity that could be used to resolve such conflict. The coordination function will provide unified interfaces and also evolvable algorithmic. It's not a fixed component. The coordination function also has a higher level view on the operation. It's not only the autonomic function which has a local view on its environment. So it can be more insightful on what's happening, detect oscillation, deviation, and degradation, and provide the right reasoning capability to solve the problem. And also, most importantly, have a runtime adaptation of the collective behavior of the system. And so, two points of discussion, 2 questions. It's really open for further interaction. We may need to have guidance for the coordination strategy at the network level. Does it come in form of an intent from a higher level, like for the input of an OSS or a human operator that will say, the coordination strategy I want for my network is that form, or that's the goal I'm looking for through the safe operation of my network. And the other aspect, which is on another level, is can the coordination function also express intent policies towards other autonomic functions or other entities, in the sense that if the coordination function detects, for instance, some misbehavior, instead of changing the parameters of this function, it can just say, this is the new goal you need to reach, and it's up to the autonomic functions to adapt itself towards this intended goal. So this is really something open for discussion, and if you are willing to discuss, we are glad to take that with you. I think it's the last slide.
Go ahead, Michael.
Hello, Michael Beringer here. High level, I understand what you're saying. It makes sense what you're saying. I'm having enormous trouble to see how we can start with that. Can you help us understand what maybe a good example would be and what a minimal policy engine would look like? In other words, can we start somewhere really, really small and understand it better and make progress from there? That would help me tremendously.
Yeah, for sure. I think, as we have discussed on the mailing list, what I see emerging is I have a lot of echo in the. What I see emerging is a need for a policy engine composed of different functions. It's how you input the policy, or you translate the policy, you check the conflicts, and then translate that into readable instructions. And as I mentioned, the coordination blocks can be one of the blocks of this policy engine. Maybe through some example we can discuss offline about what could be a form of an intent for coordination strategy. Right now it's a bit difficult to express it by oral, but we can take it offline if you wish.
Okay, let's continue with you, Laurent.
Okay.
As we already. Okay, knowledge.
Okay, so this second presentation is to highlight how we could exchange knowledge information in autonomic networks. Next slide, please. Okay, so the French sentence says, il faut savoir pour comprendre et comprendre pour agir. So if we put it in the scope of autonomic networks and in English, we can translate that into the ability to exchange information among nodes, to understand the context, to make decisions, and to take appropriate actions based on this decision. And the credits goes to John Strassner, who expressed that in an email last year when we were discussing autonomic networks. Next slide, please. So why is it important to exchange knowledge in an autonomic network? First, because discovery is not enough. One can only discover something that already exists. And a key characteristic of autonomic systems is that they learn new knowledge from the environment using computation and inference. And so their knowledge base is grown, and the information can be validated or invalidated based on the knowledge they can collect and infer. A second example will be that the cooperation relies or emerges from exchange of information among entities. So, for instance, if you take a traffic forecasting function, it can provide its knowledge to resource allocation function, enabling it to better perform, to increase the productivity of the network. This requires the capacity to advertise capabilities of the functions, but also the measured and produced information, and as well the ability to connect in a relevant way the different functions that could cooperate together. So, as a conclusion, it's vital to be able to share knowledge in an interoperable fashion in an autonomic network, and for that, so I'll put it this way, but the information at some level needs to be codified. Using some means, it can be dictionary, ontology, information models. So depending on what you want to achieve, be able to carry semantics or the inference you want to be able to process on the information. No, just keep the previous slide, please. You will need to be able to have agreed ways to code information and to exchange it in interoperable fashion. Next slide, please. So in the draft, we have sketched a solution that is used to manage the exchange and processing of information between autonomic functions. The solution provides also a unified interface for the management of information flows among autonomic functions, relying on the set of common mechanisms that are described in the draft. And also the embedded protocol is used to negotiate and automatically adapt based on the different capabilities or requirements of the participating entities. So it's also an adaptive protocol that can tune the communication characteristics based on the context. Next slide, please. Oops. This one should be. No, next one. Slide number 6, please. So the draft provides more details on the realization of such a functionality. We have a set of description of the specification, and we have also a running prototype. We can demo one day if you wish. The important thing is that the aspect of knowledge exchange and knowledge management in the scope of autonomic network is a vast topic, and it can easily connect to other areas of investigation. What comes to mind is the monitoring or measurement plane or mechanism, I mean, how you can place probes and monitoring mechanism to collect traffic and feed the management exchange, the knowledge exchange, sorry. You can also have learning capabilities or analytics that can run on the set of information that are produced, creating the knowledge, and also all the aspect of managing the information, and for instance, the storage, caching, and consistency of information in a distributed system, but also the distribution of the information among the different entities, and the optimization of all the flows among the entities. There is a specific component that is developed to optimize how the different entities communicate the information on a regular basis or different frequency, and this also needs to be optimized in its own. What we propose with this document and this topic is to serve as a basis for further study and discussion in the group, and we are really open to discuss with people willing to join in. I think it's the last slide. Thank you. Thank you.
No, that's. Hello. Yeah, it's on now. Yeah.
Hello, Laurent. It's me.
Hi.
Yeah, I think in general, the concept of information exchange is very valuable. And that is one of the reasons why we renamed the distribution draft from intent distribution to information distribution. Because
we don't have the audio feedback now.
Yeah, because we thought along with intent, there must be many other information, just as you mentioned, to be exchanged between autonomic nodes. But my question is, are you propose a new protocol dedicated for knowledge exchange, or do you think it's possible to make the knowledge exchange over GRASP?
Gone. Laurent?
Laurent, if you want to answer, you probably have to go back to the mic.
Laurent, you are off. So if you want to answer a question, you have to go mic again. Oops, that's Pierre. Laurent is after him.
I don't know. I only have one button.
Just allow Pierre first to mute him. No, that's Laurent.
Press 2 and press 2.
No. We cannot hear him. Let him go. Okay. Laurent, you're back.
Yeah, I'm back, but I think the network cuts when Big was asking the question. So I cannot hear it.
Hello, do I need to repeat my question?
Yes, please.
Okay, my question is, for the knowledge exchange, are you proposing a new protocol dedicated for this purpose, or you possibly think GRASP, the information exchange, could be also run over GRASP?
Okay, so far, I think both options are possible. I think GRASP can fit part of the requirement, but my knowledge today is that the knowledge exchange, the type of knowledge or information that could be exchanged among autonomic entities can be beyond what GRASP is currently considering, especially because there is all this aspect of, actually codifying the information. GRASP is on purpose agnostic to the type of content is carrying, and it's fine like that. But if we want to go one step further in the processing of information exchange, we need to put additional stuff in the design of the information exchange. And so we may have to extend either the GRASP or have a upper layer mechanism that are used on top of GRASP. In what we have done so far in terms of the specification and prototyping, we have used something completely different, and we have allowed very different communication schemes to be deployed at runtime, depending on the needs of the functions. Some functions will need to have broadcasting, other functions will need to have pub/sub, other functions will need to have point-to-point communication. So this is what can be done with this.
Okay, I think it will be good that you can sort out some specific requirements, and then maybe we can also consider whether these new requirements could be fixed, could be covered by the distribution mechanism. Thanks.
Okay, we work together on that. Thank you.
Hi, Lohan.
After Michael.
Okay. This is Jefferson speaking. My question is similar to the previous one, but about the data models, because you mentioned in this discussion slide about several forms of information like monitoring and measurement and so forth, and there are some current data models for that. So my question is if you are, I think he forgot. Maybe, yeah. So, yeah, if you are hearing, my question is if you are considering to integrate, to merge the current data models with the new ones that you are planning to deploy, or if a clean slate approach to have this information in the autonomic network.
Okay. Since he's unstable.
If he's not there anymore, then we can maybe put the questions on the list as well.
Yeah. Let's go for next topic. Yeah, so get the discussing on it.
Pierre wants to talk.
Yeah, he had a presentation to go.
Yeah, but if you hear me, I could also try to provide a bit of an answer to Jefferson's question. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, Pierre. Actually, we have only 12 minutes to go, so we have two presentations. Probably we would like to at least finish one.
Okay.
Pierre, I already.
So you prefer you rather keep the presentation, the question to the list, okay?
Yes.
Is that right? Yeah. Okay. So this presentation here is a refreshment on the draft on talking about autonomic functions and more specifically about IESA. Can you move to the next slide, please? So the motivations have not changed since November meeting, and they still are to improve the network operation. And today we know that we can do this through autonomics. And we've seen during the previous session that there's a lot of work going on how we can start autonomic nodes, but there's still many questions about how to get these autonomic functions that are brought to life inside this autonomic node and how we can control them, and in a way that operators will have trust in what happens there. So that's why we think that some common management functions which are transverse to these autonomic functions and to these autonomic nodes can help in this. So I think Laurent has presented previously a bit some of these ideas of command management functions, like the coordination, the knowledge point of view. So basically, this is all in this direction, and we also believe that the intents are a good way to help into this. If we move to next slide, you'll see there that the status between version 00 and version 01 is that we have basically enhanced and make it more visible, which is targeted to the current work items of Anima. And we have so then documented some requested extensions to GRASP and identified some items for the reference model. So I'll go quickly to the latest point, because it's something that is a bit more for, I would say, a second phase of Anima work. So if you move to next slide, I think you can even move by 2 if you want to be fast. So it's really how to control ASA, so that means what is their life cycle. So in order after explaining a bit this life cycle, which is a proposition for having ASA, but okay, as it is a proposition, it is technically it's one solution. There can be others. What is important is that we keep in mind that the ASA will have a given life cycle that will go through installation and reach a point where they will be operational. And I was thinking that it could be possibly a good idea to get this inside the reference model in order to accompany to make it a companion to the section where there's a bit the life cycle, something like the life cycle of an autonomic node, how it starts up and all these things. So this illustrative part that Michael explained on Monday in the session. So now moving to next slide, we go a bit more to grasp things. So this picture here is providing today's picture of we having ASA. These ASA are controlling inside the autonomic nodes. They're controlling through either netconf, SNMP, or whatever. They're controlling the network equipment, the autonomic node, and which itself has a grasp engine and an ACP engine, more likely a grasp engine over an ACP engine. And communication between these ASA is happening through grasp. So we think also that we have to integrate inside this scheme these management functions we've been talking about, namely coordination, a bit of the kind of intent distributor of intent handler, and the knowledge. So this in order to harmonize the way these autonomic functions will work the one with the other, and to make sure they will not mess the network. Next slide, please. So here we still have 2 points that are, I think, that can be addressed quite easily, quite quickly. It is first we need to control when an ASA runs and how it runs, and we need to know what it does to the network. So these are 2 main points. We can keep for later the fact of deciding which equipments are under an ASA control, especially when we have deployment scenarios a bit more complex than the one considered for today. So next slide, please. In order to have a minimal control of an ASA, we need at least to be able to start and stop this one. So the solution would be to send and start, stop, comment, next slide with grasp. And so that's why we're, next slide, Poseidon, yeah, sorry. That's why we would need to have possibly a new imperative, a new type of message, which would be an imperative command type of message. We've provided inside the draft a suggested form for this imperative message. Next slide. then if we want to know what an ASA does to the network, we need to know which network resources are modified by an ASA control loop, and also to know which network resources are monitored by an ASA control loop. That gives two things. That gives some information to an operator that would like to know what an ASA does to the network. He would know which are the inputs and the outputs of this algorithm, and it is very important in order to detect conflicts between different ASA that would be compete over something. So the solution for this is to disclose an ASA manifest at ASA bootstrap time. So if we move to next slide, we would suggest this to happen through Grasp discovery message, and we have here two different options. One would be to consider that the whole what we name a manifest, that is basically containing all this information before. So we would disclose all the information about an ASA in a single discovery message. Otherwise, we would have for each of these atomic information a different discovery message by Grasp. So these are the options ahead. So here it's the end of the presentation, and so if you want to move to the final slide, we can just conclude on this, and if you have any questions or comments.
Did I miss this? The last line, which devices the ASA controls? What was the?
Actually, to be a bit short, this time I just got rid out. I just got this off, but we.
So that is still part of your design considerations, just running out of time. Okay.
Yeah, but I thought this point would be a bit more complex to tackle in a short term.
Agreed.
So for the presentation, I kept it aside.
Thanks.
Yes.
Hello, Pierre. This
Hello.
is Finn.
Yeah.
Could you go back to slide 12? Yes. In my understanding, it's not difficult to add such kind of more information in the discovery, because the Grasp discovery totally enable very flexible data structure to be encapsulated in the either discovery or response messages. So in my point of view, it's not very difficult. And for the, could you go to the slide 10? In the message consideration, I think it's also not difficult to add such kind of message, but the essential problem of this proposal is that it's not only regarding to Grasp interactions, it's more related to the ASA's behavior. I don't know whether it is good to allow one ASA to control the other ASA. Maybe there's some very vital security considerations. Maybe it's risky to allow one ASA to control the other ASA. So in my point of view, this is not regarding, not only regarding to the graphs. It's maybe more related to the reference model.
Do you want, Michael? Do you want to speak, or may I answer now?
You answer
Okay.
first.
Yeah, I find your point very interesting, Leo, because I mean, regarding whether it is an ASA design or whether it is a Grasp point of view, I think our draft is really addressing this as the main topic of the draft is ASA and ASA behavior, and whether we have some management functions which can be considered as very specific ASA, which has for a unique role to control this ecosystem of ASA and provide some control over it. So that's possibly, yeah, that's in my opinion a design choice that we have to make, and I would have been more happy if this design choice would have been made a bit earlier in this working group, but now we're a bit in a fuzzy way where we don't really know what ASA are how they are going to be controlled, and if they need to be controlled.
Yeah, Tolles. So, I mean, to me, it looks like there need to be some ASAs that are up there from the beginning, which are the ones that are doing, the life cycle management of the other ASAs, right? And I think that's where basically your stuff comes in. These ASAs would have the other ASA binary, know the manifests, and can install them where needed based on manifest information, for example.
Quick.
Okay. Same opinion as Tolles. To me, this is a special type of ASA, sort of a meta ASA, if you want, that controls the other ones. The comment I actually wanted to make is about the knowledge plane intersection. I'm not wrong, right? What you do for ASA coordination requires a knowledge plane, really, right?
It's it depends what you consider as the knowledge plane. But yeah,
I think
possibly
your presentation. Sorry, your presentation and Laurence to me sound like they attack the same problem from different angles. If you want to register ASAs, which parameters they touch, then you need to capture that somewhere in something that could be called a knowledge plane. So I think the two are related.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. Of course. But this information is related, and we use it for coordination as well. In any case, I think so.
My co-chair killing me because we're running out of time, but just for the whole intent folks here, one suggestion. I found it extremely helpful to, look at and understand Brian's graph prototype code. So, if we want to make progress with intent, maybe also consider, building some form of prototyped code for your ideas to run this stuff by other folks. I think that's a lot more easy to come to a conclusion with than just ideas on PowerPoint.
Okay, we're running out of time. Actually, that's not our fault, because originally we applied 90 minutes for our second session. Then it's the IETF secretary asked us to make it shorter. Next time I will make sure, we apply longer time and have more, interested in discussing. And before you go, please make sure you sign the blue sheet. And this is the workshop. We hope attract more interesting and also reach more academic people outside of IETF that will be held in your conference on network and communication. It's in Essen, July 27th. Okay, that's it. So see you guys in Essen or Berlin. Thanks for your time. Hold on a second.
Bye-bye, guys.